You're listening to the Beyond Mommy Dearest podcast, where we talk about growing up with narcissistic moms, how it shapes your nervous system, your relationships, and your sense of self, and how to heal without shame. I'm your host, Nolani Pearl Hernandez.
This episode is sponsored by the Happy Cannabis, body products designed to help you on your healing journey by supporting your nervous system with every application.
Trigger warning. This content discusses narcissistic abuse, family court, emotional manipulation, and high conflict family dynamics. The information shared in this podcast is based on personal experiences and opinion and is intended for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing in this podcast should be considered legal advice, mental health advice, or a substitute for professional legal, medical, or therapeutic services. If you need legal advice, please consult a qualified attorney in your jurisdiction. Today I'm joined by Nicholas Garcia for a conversation about family court, high conflict custody battles, false allegation, and what happens when a parent finds themselves fighting to stay connected to their children. Throughout the conversation, you'll help both of us talk about the incredible support. Nick, thank you so much for being here and being willing to share your story. And I'm just going to put it out there like right now. I am totally like willing to cancel because Nick was served an ex parte this morning and has to be in court tomorrow. So he's been running around all morning. And for those of you who know, that's fucking bullshit. Like it's crazy. And it's often piggybacked with like other court hearings and they're trying to sneak in and it's just bullshit. And it is totally disgusting the way that family court handles, especially high conflict. Most of the time they're on the narcissistic like spectrum of parents dealing with other parents. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I do apologize to the audience at home. You're seeing me mid-crisis. So it was literally 1.5 hours ago when I got a call, and they said, we're going in for an emergency hearing to reduce custody and my case is currently in an appeal, and they're just trying to piggyback it off of something, sneak it in. I had less than an hour or I guess 2 hours. So I had to
that's nothing.
Drive, file, come right back, and try to be present for this interview. And if my energy is more aggressive, or this is just me in crisis mode, and so I thank you for your patience.
Yeah, absolutely. And you used a really interesting word when you were just talking about this. You said aggressive, and we work with a lot of nonprofits. We work with trauma-informed coaching. We do a lot of that. And I don't think it's aggressive at all. I think what you're doing is you're trying to protect your children.
Yeah.
And that,
no,
like,
I meant my energy.
I
meant my energy within the conversation, because usually I can have a more calm. I'm more calm and peaceful. But when I'm in the middle of a crisis and like that, if there's a ding, that's going to be people who are in organizations are coming in to view the court hearing. So there's a lot of juggling that happens within a 24-hour emergency hearing.
So many things. So Nick, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So before all of this legal advocacy began, you were a dad, you were an educator, and you were a person. So tell me a little bit about like who you were before. Excuse me.
Well, I mean,
tell me a little bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So who I was before, I was the youngest department chair in the country. I came right out of graduate school and then took over a college program and the college program I kind of had to rebuild. And so I started rebuilding it with the students. And what we started doing is we started collaborating. And because I came from a place that did a lot of student work, we would produce that student work. And throughout that, I mean, we started, I partnered with the English department, and I would say, if you guys write new plays, we'll put them on.
Oh, cool.
And then we started partnering with the city, and we brought John Singleton in, we brought Tay Diggs,
that's cool.
So we started combining and really, it went from just theater into community leading. and how to
Mm-hmm.
bring everyone together. One of my students wrote a hip hop musical about his life and staying out of gangs,
Oh,
and then
wow.
it won a bunch of awards, and they flew us out to the Kennedy Center in DC, and so there was a lot of that. As a
Yeah.
father, I had two really amazing dads. So my
Mm-hmm.
parents were divorced, and
Mm-hmm.
my biological father was always in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
just an incredible person, loved me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then my stepdad was one of the greatest human beings
Mm-hmm.
ever, who
Mm-hmm.
loved me as much as his children. So I've been in the system where the system can work, where you
Yes.
have just incredible parents on both sides. And I had really amazing men to look up to. And my
Mm-hmm.
grandfathers were also amazing. My great grandfathers were amazing.
Right.
And so I had a lot to look up to. I think, you know, in regards to when we look back at all of this too, you can look at really where you went wrong and where your flaws were too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I think ultimately, aside from just relationship issues, I think what's
Mm-hmm.
important for the audience, for the people at home to understand too, is when you can go back and you can look at like how you contributed myself personally to
Mm-hmm.
what happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think while I was a really good dad,
Mm-hmm.
um, I wasn't necessarily the most attentive or present husband. I think
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, when I said I was the youngest department chair in the country, so
Mm-hmm.
when I got my job, it was like, how do I prove myself to the world?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would obsess 24/7 about how I'm working on this, and then I'm not giving the attention at home. And then by the time we had kids, though, things had settled down. But both of us
Mm-hmm.
were like helicopter parents, right? So when you
Mm-hmm.
get a
Mm-hmm.
child, one of the things that they don't tell you is you get a baby and they're like, here, make sure this baby is healthy and alive. And if not, it's your
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah.
And there are no
Yeah.
guidebooks. I mean, there are
No.
guidebooks that
Mm-mm.
are written by people who aren't parents. And
Yeah.
so you're panicked all the time and you become
Yep.
helicopter parents. And then
Mm-hmm.
both of you really place your child as the number one thing in your life,
Right.
your children. And so for me, it was like the children, then the job and career and providing for everyone, and then your
Mm-hmm.
spouse. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until COVID happened, really. Well, I was
Mm-hmm.
before that, because what ended up happening is you just build resentment. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's more and more resentment that happens, and then more isolation,
Mm-hmm.
um and so as you go through that, one thing that I was very good at and that I knew I was really good at was being a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was, though, as soon as you file for divorce, then the kids aren't. It's not just about the kids. Um, Kids also represent money as well,
Mm-hmm.
and whoever
Mm-hmm.
controls the time controls the money.
Yep.
And her family came from money as well, and so
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
was. I had to withstand 5 years of false allegations. The Family Court Services called it a nonstop litany of false allegations, is what it was quoted as.
And
Um,
this to me is a really crazy thing. I want to go back really quick and talk about the example that you had with your biological dad and your stepdad. For me, I didn't have that. My dad was my dad. My mom went to court. I'm part of that system where when she went to court, she said, "Oh, Nolani doesn't want to see you," and then told me the exact opposite. And your dad cheated on me, and blah blah blah. Or she didn't say me. I say that now. Your dad cheated on us. Your dad did this to us, and it was a lot of like loyalty conflicts that were going on. Whereas my husband, with his dad, who was always in his life, and his stepdad were two really great people, and that their divorce, my mother-in-law, who's a saint, their divorce was like very amazing when it came to my husband. And so my husband like definitely reflects that in the way he parents his kids, in all of those things. And my mom and dad have been divorced for almost 40 years and cannot be in the same room together. Not because of my dad, my poor dad, not because of him. He's just attracted to narcissists. My mom is crazy and like just is all over him all the time. I'm like, you've been divorced for like 40 years, give it up. Right. But I think when we talk about this, and the reason why we're talking about this topic is the family court system really feeds into that high conflict narcissistic um, behavior because they're there, they need to make money, right? And they're making money off the backs of our kids. And I hate that. I hate, like, I
Yeah.
hate that fact. And so if we can look at it like that, like, my biggest piece of advice for people who are going through a divorce is to stay out of family court. Like, do everything yourself, stay out of family court. And really, who cares if your ex husband or wife gets, you know, 2 or 3 more days out of the year than you do? Really doesn't matter. The kids aren't going to, they're not going to go and count and then say, well, you spent 3 days less with me. That doesn't mean that you love me. So I think that that's a really important thing. And I want to frame this so that listeners understand that this is not a episode to like shit on divorce or anything like that. It is strictly from the standpoint of what is best for your kids.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I think too, there's also a lot of I mean, even though I'm getting the, I have an ex parte hearing,
Yeah. Yeah.
um I think I think when you realize that there's if there's an imbalance or if there's something that isn't right
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
with your ex, also being forgiving too, because hurt
Yes.
people, right? And so
Yes.
when you have two healed people, then they're not looking to fight because you're putting off healed energy. When
Right.
you're unhealed and when you're hurt, then you're looking for some kind of avenue.
Right.
A lot of families that I've been able to talk to that have reached out, you start to realize that narcissism gets thrown around, but it's part of the cluster B. And when I was
Yep.
talking with my therapist, she was talking about that a lot. So that there's narcissistic,
Hmm.
there's borderline, there's
Hmm.
histrionic, there's a
Hmm.
lot of
Hmm.
different ones, and they're all very similar, but
Yes.
they're not necessarily, but a lot of high conflict situations deal with
Yes.
one of
Look
them.
similar. Yeah.
They look
Or look
similar.
similar or have
Exactly.
the tendencies, right? Because,
But yeah,
and we say this all the time because my DSM is right behind me. We say this all the time. You have to have like 5 of the 9 or 9 of the 14 traits
yeah.
to be diagnosed as a narcissist. And most narcissists won't get diagnosed. They just
But you
won't. They
also
don't go.
and you have to go to a PhD, and they
Yep.
have to run specific tests.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so if those things don't happen, then it can be undiagnosed. And again, I'm not making any claims
Right.
that there isn't, but
Right.
when you start to realize what
Right.
is happening, and you can also be very forgiving as well, because you can understand
Yeah.
that if somebody is if somebody can't control something, then it's not
Right.
their fault.
Right.
But the whole point of court and what I've learned, and again, this isn't legal advice. Nothing in this is
Right.
legal advice. This is
Yes.
just
Nothing. Yeah.
yeah, this is just my experience with it. But what I've learned is that just in court in general, right? The reason
Yeah.
that lawyers exist is you have two parties and they're both
Hmm.
angry at each other.
Yep.
And the lawyer, you aren't able to fight with each other, so you
Hmm.
get attorneys who are able to
Right.
fight for you, and they
Right.
look at you as billable hours. So
Yes.
their job is
Yeah.
and
To
every
stoke
email
the
you send
fire.
them is
Right.
a part of a billable hour. So
Yes.
their job is to keep you. So if they're here and you're here,
Conflict.
their
Yeah.
job is to keep you in as much conflict as possible, but to keep
Right.
it out of the courtroom. So
Right.
they want to keep moving it until only the most serious of issues that they can't control will they
Hmm.
bring to a court. So that you'll see that the lawyers will fight, 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 almost bring it to court, and then be like, "Well, let's talk," and
Just
then they
kidding.
bring it down.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's the pattern to get you to be exhausted of all of your funds, because the whole
Yep.
court system knows that once you're broke, you have to work together,
Yep.
or you can't come into court anyway. And
Right.
so
Right.
yeah, so not only is there that, then you bring it before the judge, and if the judge keeps seeing things, then the
Hmm.
judge is also supposed to look at the attorneys and be like,
Hmm.
"What are you doing?" And
Yes.
then start to hold them accountable. But the
Right.
problem that we run into is, because it's money, right? What
Hmm.
they do is they also try to exhaust you.
Yeah.
What they'll do is they say, "Look, we need a child therapist. Nope, we need
Hmm.
supervision. Nope, we need," and
Hmm.
what each of these
Hmm.
industries that go below it,
Hmm.
right? Parent coaching, all
Hmm.
of that. All of them get kickbacks and feed off of the system that is already in place. And the whole reason for this too
Hmm.
is to drain your bank accounts. And what you're
Mm-hmm.
really doing is you're trying to buy peace. I had one incredible
Mm-hmm.
judge
Mm-hmm.
who said, really, divorce is about buying peace. And
Right.
and then when she met both of us, she was like, it's clear that you're much more on the healed path.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, there's, so once you understand how that system works,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Then guardians ad litem, right? So what I didn't
Yes.
know was that the court appoints them, but the court
Mm-hmm.
also gets kickback money from them.
Yeah.
And so they're all connected. They're all part of the system. You also have to understand that all the judges were attorneys as well. They were
Right.
attorneys in that area. They go to the
Yeah.
same conferences. They
They go
go
to
to
the
the same,
bar,
yeah, they
all
go
the
to the bars. They go to the
associations.
same fundraisers. Yeah.
I
And
mean, and
so
this is the thing, like, I think that people don't understand. Like, there is, the big judge that's there. Like, and yes, for the most part, they try to work really hard to be unbiased. They try to push all those things away because that's why judges are there. And most of the times when they get appointed, they're appointed because they are the most unbiased of human beings. But human beings
well,
are
that's what
biased.
we
Like
hope.
that's
I
the
don't think that
yeah,
that's necessarily how. I
right.
mean, if we look at politics and we look at how appointments
Yeah.
usually go, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, um,
Yeah.
I think what I did find out, and what is really wonderful to know, right, is that judges are held to a higher standard, and
Yes.
so when a judge has to be biased, or sorry, unbiased, and they
Hmm.
have to. At least appear unbiased, and that doesn't mean that they
Yes.
won't become biased. That doesn't mean that they
Right.
aren't biased in the thing, but
Right.
because every judges also get report cards. So as I was looking
Yes.
at into this, I didn't realize this, but judges are evaluated and have report cards. And there's
Yes.
an entire third of our government that we know nothing about. But it's just,
Yes.
I used to think that you would run for office, but in order to be a judge, but most judges are appointed.
They're
And
appointed by the governor.
by the governor, and so those
Yep.
appointments all come through recommendations, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so the way you move up in the system and you start to look at, there's private judges, there's
Hmm.
judges
Hmm.
clerks,
Hmm.
there's a
Hmm.
lot of
Hmm.
different things that are all, but they're all under the same system,
Right.
but they get report cards. And so with appeals go to that, complaints go
Hmm.
to that. All
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
judges are very clear about what they, I guess, what they would call splitting the baby, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
how to try to make sure. They also have a lingo that it took me years to understand,
Hmm.
where the judge will come in and then they what they do is they go, this is what you needed to do, this is what you needed to do, and then they start to speak in a language.
Hmm.
And the more you're there, you start to understand it. But the language is, they talk in timeshare, they talk
Yep.
in things. So what they end up doing is you'll leave the hearing not knowing what's going on.
Yes.
You'll be
Yes.
more confused than what is normally,
Yes.
and they do that
Yes.
on purpose.
Yes.
There's a specific way of speaking, and there's a movie called The 13th Warrior. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was
I
with
haven't seen
Antonio
it.
Banderas years ago,
Okay.
years in the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
he's Middle Eastern, and he gets on this ship with Vikings, and
Hmm.
he has to sit there, and then they all start speaking, and it shows that, like, little by little he picks up like one word here and one
Yep.
word here,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then pretty soon he can start speaking that way, and they go, how did you do that? And he grabs them and he goes, I listened, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but you have to be kicked around a lot. And it took, I'm not saying that I understand all of it too. I'm
Right.
not saying that, that I have any answers that any other pro per, like,
Right.
again, every pro per is going through this blindly.
And those are people who represent themselves, just so people know. So
Yes.
proper are people who represent themselves in the court of law, which anyone can do in any court. I don't recommend it, but you have been successful, more successful
Yeah.
than most.
Well, I mean, however that means too, because
Yeah.
one thing that you start to understand is that they're supposed to be more lenient on you if you're a pro
Hmm.
per, but they're
Yep.
actually more hard. So
Yes.
you have to know
Yes.
the rules better than the opposing attorney, because if they make a mistake, if they
Yeah.
serve you incorrectly, if they have a mistake on their paperwork,
Right.
they get to come in and go, Your Honor, I'm sorry, it happens. And if
Yeah.
you do it, they go, it gets thrown
Nope.
out.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
and
a
so there
big,
is,
big
it's
thing.
very
Hmm.
much not an even playing field.
It's not.
And they and attorneys know this, and they misuse that authority constantly.
Unfortunately. And, one of the things that I think is really interesting is you talk about language, right? There's certain language. And I think that one of the things that's really important for people to understand is to listen to this as the judge is talking. If there are places where it says shall, and you don't want to talk about that anymore, you can say, hey, to your lawyer, or you can vocalize as a pro per and say, can you please change that to may? Because shall is the force. May is you can if you want to, but you don't have to. And
Yep.
these are really important things. I know that it's like nitpicky. And when it comes to any court, any family court, any of these things, this is a really important thing for you to understand because unfortunately, there are thousands, probably millions of divorces that are going on. There's thousands of cases that are running through these judges' courtrooms. Um, some of the judges who are in family court will have like 20 cases a day that will just go in there really fast,
Oh, well,
and they don't know them.
that's
Yeah.
what you have to learn as well. So oh man, if I could give advice, this is not legal advice, but if I
Not
could be a
legal advice.
guide
Yeah.
to the younger version of me, and that's my whole
Yeah.
goal. How do I
Yeah.
become a guide that I
Yeah.
wish I would have had? Okay, so a judge has 20 cases per
Mm-hmm.
day, and really the judge's job is to decide one issue or to get an update, and it's
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes. So you have
Yep.
about 15 minutes per client,
Just like a doctor. Yep.
just like a doctor's office. They
Yeah.
come in, they go, "What are your symptoms? Try this."
Yep.
Boom, out. Then they
Out.
charge full price to the,
Yep.
to whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
So when you understand that going in, you also have to understand that the permanent record is very important. And when I
Yes.
say permanent record, that means what you
Yeah.
file that you place in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more important than what you say in the courtroom. Now, what you
Right.
say in the courtroom and what the judge says in the courtroom is also important. That's why you
Right.
need a transcript, because
Yeah.
when the rules are broken, they're always in the transcript. And so
Yes.
you want to make sure,
Yes.
yeah, so you want to make sure that there is evidence of that, and
Mm-hmm.
and try to make sure that there are people there that are present as well.
Right.
But the permanent record, what you want to make sure that is happening when you're going and putting it in, what I wish I could tell myself earlier, but I feel like I did it already anyway,
Right.
is
Right.
what must not be forgotten, even if I lose.
Right.
And so one
Right.
of the how I had gotten started was I was brought in with false allegations two
Mhm.
times a week.
Oh my
We had
God.
ex parte for a full year. $200,000 was spent, and then medical records were weaponized,
Mm-hmm.
misused, and
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
kind of maliciously misrepresented, I guess. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know
Mm-hmm.
legally if I can say that, but the appearance of that, right? It was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
weaponization of them. And so finally, I went to put in for a domestic violence restraining order, a
Mm-hmm.
DVRO, which you can. I was under advised for that, so I had placed that in, and that was about the time my lawyer was like, "Hey, Nick, you can't pay for me anymore. I gotta
Mm-hmm.
go."
Yeah.
And then I walked in and I was scared to death because I was like, how do I mean, if
How
this
do I do
person is
this?
beating
Yeah.
up my attorney who I'm paying $600 an hour for.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
sometimes two at the same time, just so you know, because they have
yeah,
partners. So that's a whole nother thing. But
exactly. And you're
yeah.
scared to death. And then what I had to do is my wife, who I love more than anything in this world, she
Mm-hmm.
grabbed me and she was like, Nick, you have the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and that hit me, and I turned
Mm-hmm.
around and I started looking and reading. I read
Mm-hmm.
what my attorney was filing, and I read
Right.
what their attorney was filing.
Right.
And then I realized that all they were argumentative essays. And I'm a
Yeah.
teacher. I read
Yeah.
papers.
Yeah.
I have a terminal
Yeah.
degree. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, so this is just a research paper. Tell them what you're going to tell them,
Yep.
tell them what you told them, and give them the
Yep.
evidence they need.
Right. Right.
And then I was like, okay. So then I came in shaking like a leaf, and
Yeah.
the judge at the time had looked at me, and at first she was like, "You think that you have a domestic violence restraining order hearing,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia?"
Yes. Yes.
And I'm serious. And so she put me last. And what judges will do is they'll put you last because you have to pay for you're paying for the attorney
Yes.
by the hour. So it's a
Yes.
weaponization of something too. And so she waited until I was last, and then I said, "Your Honor, they stole my medical documents and misrepresented them." And she was like, "How do you have proof?" And I said, "Funny enough, they submitted the proof as part of their filing. It's this page." And she read it, and you could see her face change. And once she
Yep.
understood that the other
What was,
side was
yeah.
lying, and how they were misrepresenting the facts, she was like, "Okay, Mr. Garcia, any other things you want to do, we'll have a continued hearing."
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
7 days I just presented evidence.
Everything. You got to
And
have the receipts, unfortunately.
yes, you have to have the
You
receipts,
have
and
to
you have
have
to
the
understand
receipts.
how to
Yes.
document.
Right.
Because one of the
And
things
that's,
that people
yeah.
tell you is they go, "Well, you have to document, you have to," but no one tells you how.
How to document. Right.
Yes.
Because it's very specific. Like, okay, so I'll be honest. If I could say anything in regards to like the abuse that occurred with my mom, I would put a lot of like my own feeling and truth into it. That's not what the court wants to hear. The
Yeah.
court wants to hear this is the time, this is the date, this is what happened. Directly document, very factual. Next, this is the time, this is the date. On this date, she called at this time. Here's the voice memo. This is blah, 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 whatever it is. Because all the other stuff is noise to them.
Well,
It's just
most of
noise.
most of family court too is petty disputes, right?
Yes.
Things that don't
Yes.
necessarily matter. And so the hard part too is when you're in it, everything matters because it's
Right.
you're just being attacked constantly for your character, who you are, what you think. What
And it
I mean,
hurts.
I
It
would
hurts.
you well,
Like, let's be
exactly, but
honest. It hurts your feelings. You're like, what the fuck? No, I'm not.
exactly. Yeah,
Like,
it's really
right.
hurtful. And
Yes.
so, but again, once you understand too that
Right.
I started to understand what is how it all works too. So you'll
Right.
get, say you have something,
Mm-hmm.
they and if they make a false claim, and then you
Mm-hmm.
say, "All right, I have the evidence here." First, you got to
Mm-hmm.
introduce the evidence. You have to
Yep.
mark it for an exhibit.
Yep.
Both sides have to look at it, and then the
Yep.
opposing party will always go, "No, it's hearsay."
Yes.
And so it
Always.
needs to be thrown out. But here's what's funny. If anything that the other party, again, this is not legal advice, but what I
Yes.
learned through going through multiple trials now is that as soon as they said, "The kid said," "We heard," "The
That's
something
hearsay.
said," that's hearsay.
Yeah. It's
Objection,
all of it is.
hearsay, boom, gets
Yeah.
thrown out. And
Right.
that's what they do when you do it. But when they
Yeah.
do it, if you don't say it, it gets through.
It gets in the permanent record. And I think that's really important because I think about it all the time. And I've never pulled my parents like divorce records just because I don't care. Like
Yeah.
I know what the truth is. But if your kids get savvy enough, and like if I really wanted to, I probably could pull the divorce records from my parents. And it probably would say all the things that I know now. But then I would have the proof. That's a permanent record, right? I would
Yeah.
have the proof.
And the permanent
Yeah,
record is, and remember, what must not be forgotten, even if you lose. And
right.
so
It
one
needs
of
to
the
be in
things
there.
that started happening too is the other attorney would make horrific threats or things like that behind the scenes, and then turn around and in their filing blame it on me. And I was like, "No, we're not going to do that." So I would print off that opposing
Yeah,
counsel's emails, and I
yeah.
would attach it as exhibits. And I would
Well,
be
yeah.
like, "Your Honor, you read it for yourself. This is
Right,
what this person is like behind the scenes, and this is
right,
what this person is like to your face." And
right.
once you start to see it, what they know what's happening, but once it's part of the permanent record, they can't unsee it, and now
No,
it's set in stone for
it's
forever.
set in stone forever. And I
Exactly.
think that's really important because, like, if you have off conference, like, say, if the judge says to you, okay, go do your conferences, and you go off conference and you go do things, like, those lawyers might say some real crazy stuff to you. If you're
Well, a
pro
lawyer's
se,
job
they'll
is
say
to
crazy
threaten.
stuff.
Yes. I mean,
Yes,
and lawyers, funny enough, what you start to realize, and this isn't all lawyers, because there's some very,
yes,
very, very sharp,
yes,
very good, very
yes,
dangerous lawyers.
yes.
But most of the lawyers that you're going to meet, especially in family law, are going to
Right.
be peacocks, like a big useless bird that runs up and throws up its feathers, and
Yep.
it's big and
Yeah.
colorful. And they're like,
Yeah.
"This is what I'll do for you. I can
Distraction.
do
Yeah.
all of these things."
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you yourself, you're so scared. You're like, "But the bright colors, yes, that's my
Yes. Yeah,
hero."
exactly.
And then
Well,
they
and this
walk
is,
in. Yeah.
and it's the most emotional thing, right? That's the
Yes.
thing. It's the most emotional thing that you have is your kids. Like, and that's, for me, like, of course my dad was gonna like buckle to my mother. Like, of course he was. Because my mom is a crazy narcissist. My dad has a mother wound. He attracts narcissists. My stepmother was a narcissist. Like, and when my dad got divorced recently and we were going through this whole thing with him, he had been married for 20 years to my stepmother. And she was saying all the crazy stuff, like, oh, he abused me. Oh, he did this. I was like, my dad, like, I love my dad to death, but he had a stroke like 25 years ago. All the things that you're saying are not true.
Are not true
It's
and not
not
possible.
possible. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah. And so,
crazy. It's crazy
yeah.
making. So,
Well, and
yeah.
in almost all the cases that where it's a high conflict case and these kinds of
Yes.
things happen,
Yes.
my own case included,
Yeah.
what you end up seeing is that there's no criminal record,
No.
there's no abuse
Yeah.
claims, nothing until you file for divorce, and
For
then
divorce.
suddenly
It's all
here is
there.
everything.
I
Yeah,
didn't
because the
say anything
silver.
for all these times. Like, come on, that's bullshit. Like, no
Exactly.
way. No, I call
Exactly.
BS.
And so,
Yeah.
and yeah, so what you end up, I mean, the hard part about this too in family law, it's one of the hard parts, is that everyone, because it's family's dirty laundry, because
Mm-hmm.
it's everybody wants to hide and not
Mm-hmm.
share what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I mean for years I feel like that's where I was, and then only now am I at the
Mm-hmm.
point where I'm like I'm ready to move forward with my life, and then
Mm-hmm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
had to, I don't think anyone's been more documented than I have, and I mean that because uh, as soon as this is all like said and done history now, right?
Right. Right.
But as soon as I had filed, my first
Mm-hmm.
filing was one page. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just said, "My
Mm-hmm.
kids are
Mm-hmm.
being withheld. Please help."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I didn't know the process.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Of
what was
course.
happening.
Yeah.
And then the silver bullet of family law, what happens is they claim that you're an abuser. They claim that that there
Mm-hmm.
are allegations of any kind of
Mm-hmm.
improper
Mm-hmm.
abuse of any kind. They
Mm-hmm.
claim that you're
Mm-hmm.
an alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
and what and then they claim that they need supervised visitation, right? And so all of these things are happening, and that
Mm-hmm.
people, that the kids are unsafe in your care. So as soon as that happened, I understood what had happened because like I'm familiar with high
Right.
conflict divorces and
Yeah.
false allegations.
Yeah.
And so we started recording every visit.
Yeah.
So as soon as
Yeah.
I showed up, we had a video camera, and my supervisors had a video camera as well, and they would keep me in the
Interesting.
frame. And
That's
I was so
interesting.
grateful because I was like, look, keep me in frame. And without a doubt, every single time,
Mm-hmm.
that twice a week, remember, we would come in
Mm-hmm.
before the court and they would make
Mm-hmm.
false allegations. The
That's
children
so
came home
crazy.
that they
Twice
were
a week. That's
twice a
crazy.
week
Like,
for
how can anybody
emergency
hold a
hearings.
job? How can anybody hold a job? That's the other thing, because
Yeah, well, and
then
that's
you
their
can't hold a
goal.
job, and then they're like, "Oh, hey, by the way, he's totally like he's not employed." Well,
This is
fuck
how
you. I'm
this
employed
is how the
twice a
system
week.
creates and
Yeah.
enforces deadbeat dads, even though they're not
Right.
deadbeat dads. This is
Right. 100%.
and
Hmm.
it's not just fathers. I do want to say that really
Yeah.
what we're talking about is the working and non-working parent, the
Yes. Yeah.
custodial versus the non-custodial, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
and then so with all of that, we're talking about like almost there was 7 months
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
me recording every visit. But not
Hmm.
on top of that, I had supervisors. Then I
Hmm.
had to do sober link where you're breathing into a thing to prove that you're not an alcoholic for 6 months. I had to take parent classes. Then as soon as we would get to the part where I was supposed to like reset and then I'd get unsupervised visits,
Yeah.
they'd make new claims. They would, we would have to go in for an ex parte on that. And so
Yep.
then we would have, and then they brought in a child therapist, and then they're coaching the child to make false claims or
Yep.
statements. And then luckily the
Hmm.
therapist, when we had spoke, the therapist was like, Nick, have you heard of parental alienation? And I
Hmm.
was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But then we started talking, and really what they're looking for too is sorry, let me
No, no,
continue
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah, yeah.
documentation. So then I had professional supervisors in with
Yep.
everything. So we're talking about years where every single thing of my life was documented.
It's so
And
crazy.
it
That's
was it,
crazy.
it was a lot. However, I'm so grateful now because I have all of these home videos
Yeah, you and the
of
kids.
me with my
Yeah,
kids having
yeah,
fun. And
yeah.
because there were false allegations of like, I mean, it was so bad that they said the air in your house is dangerous.
Oh
You
my
cannot have them in your house.
God.
So I had
Yeah.
to move my
Yeah.
entire living room into my backyard. There are videos of this. And then I like, but what I started to realize too is I couldn't, what not realize, it was the gift. The gift was you're no longer a passive parent. You're not a parent who can be like, sit down, watch TV. We're going to do,
Yeah.
and you
You're
start to
active.
treasure every moment
Yeah.
with your kids. You're planning
Yeah.
activities. You're going to the park. You're going
Yeah.
to the libraries. And it was right after COVID and my kids were really isolated. So just
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
Target for them was like
Yeah.
going to
Like,
Disneyland.
yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I just want to put it out there that this is not like an isolated case, because the problem that happens with this is no one ever talks about it. No one ever
Exactly.
talks about it, because if you talk about it, it's this whole thing. And for me, I think it's a really important thing to say things like, look, yes, we should treasure our partners, our, wives, our, mothers, all those things. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not a woman hater. I am a woman. I appreciate it. And my mom was a horrible piece of shit and beat the shit out of me and was super abusive. Those two things can be true at once. They can be true at once. And women can be abusers just like men can be abusers. It has no
And if you
gender.
can hold contradictions in your head,
Yeah.
that's what's been a really illuminating thing, where two
Hmm.
things that are at
Yeah.
opposition with each other
Can be
can
true at
be
once.
true at the same time.
Right.
And it's not, and I'm so sorry to hear about that from about your mom.
Yeah.
But I know
But it makes me who I am today.
that's
And it's the
true.
reason why I thought was really important that somebody, and I know there's many, many people out in the space. I think that for me, one of the reasons why we do this is, as a woman of color, as a woman who had an immigrant mom, and that the abuse was, oh, she's an immigrant, she doesn't know any better. Bullshit. Like, I call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
And so that men who were going through something similar, something very similar to what my dad was going through, understand that no, they're not going crazy. Their ex wife might just be crazy and doing all of these horrible things to their kids. And that can be true at the same time.
That can be true at the same time, but you also, one thing that I want to tell the people at home who are going through this, because I've gone through it, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
I had a different approach with it, and it was because I was under so much constant attack
Mm-hmm.
that the parent coaches, the
Mm-hmm.
supervisors, the
Mm-hmm.
people that were there, I didn't look at them as enemies. I didn't
Mm-mm.
look at them
Mm-mm.
as obstacles. And it wasn't humiliating that I had to have that. I was grateful to them because I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
knew the level of false allegations they were trying. I mean, it was like try to put
Yeah.
you in jail,
Yeah.
allegations
Yeah.
constantly. And so I was so grateful to have another party there that was writing
Mm-hmm.
reports, that was
Yes.
the level of protection for me, that was
Right.
allowing me to see my children. And I
Right.
remember thanking them. And I remember what's wonderful too is that you know, on drives where you're going to pick up the kids, on drives where you're coming back,
Yep.
you can ask them questions. And
Mm-hmm.
then I really looked at it as an opportunity to be a better
Yeah.
parent. And
Yeah.
when you realize that, I think there was a time too where somebody, if you're dealing with one of the cluster Bs, right? What'll happen
Yeah.
is people will tell you you're a bad father, you're this, you're this, you're this, and then the court
Yeah.
is entertaining allegations that aren't real, and you're hurting, and you start to
Yeah.
go,
Maybe I am.
maybe I
Yeah.
am. But what was
Yeah.
wonderful is that when each of these people that I was with, they would go, "You're an amazing dad."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they would tell you that, and then it's like I had to prove it to myself. I knew it, and I knew
Yeah.
what was happening,
Well, and
but
that's what they do. So, like, that feeling
yeah,
that you had, that is what narcissists, high conflict people who are going through divorce want you to feel.
yeah,
Because from the, and I heard you say it, $200,000, spending $200,000, all this money, they're making you feel like you're a horrible person or horrible parent. Most people just say, okay. Like I don't at all look down on my dad because he was like, okay, my daughter doesn't want to see me. That's okay. I mean, my mom probably said some really crazy stuff and I get it. And he just didn't have the money. I can only imagine what it would have been like then, 40 years ago,
Yeah.
paying for that, paying for a divorce with a high conflict woman, and all of the things. And I mean, like I said, to this day, they can't even be in the same room together. Their granddaughter, my daughter, graduated from high school, and I literally had to sit them down and say, this is not about you. I was talking mainly to my mother. This is not about you. This is, your granddaughter's graduation. Let go of all this other crap. Like you haven't been together. Both of you are remarried. You have your own life. And so I think that is a really, really important thing. And we're going to have in the show notes, just so you know, we'll point to some of Nick's information, the things that has happened. He's got a case that's in front of the Ninth Circuit, right? Right
Yeah,
now?
so right now I have obviously the family law case is still ongoing
Right.
in the Superior Court.
Right.
There's an appeal that's happening in the Appellate Court, the First District of San Francisco, and then
Okay.
there is a case at the Ninth Circuit, and that is
Okay.
just one. So that's in
Like
federal
one,
court,
yeah.
and that's the next step is the Supreme Court of the
Supreme Court,
United States.
right.
Yeah, SCOTUS.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and that is, and we'll point to all those things so people can read it. And I cannot express enough for those of you who are going through this, for those of you who are a partner to someone who's going through this, it's really important that you read these things, because to understand what your significant other is going through, to understand what your husband's going through, to understand what your wife's going through, it's important, because it's not only your kids, but they're attacking your character and who you were born to be as a parent. Like these are really, really incriminating things. And for people who go through this, I think it's really important that you have a partner, a wife. You have an amazing wife. I have an amazing partner who, oh my God, my husband is a saint. For all the trauma I've been through, he is like, I have a Instagram post where it's a dad with a little girl saying, you're beautiful and you're brave and you're brilliant. I mean, that literally is what he does every day. We work from home, we have our own business, but he provides that for me. And I think that if you can be that kind of partner to help your person, to help your wife, your husband through that trauma, that's a huge thing. And
and I
you
feel
know,
like the thing that
yeah,
people need to hear at that time too. So if you are there,
yeah,
um, is every time you get those filings, you start to feel
yeah,
like the whole world is collapsing. You feel like you're
yeah,
going to lose your kids, you're going to lose your
yep,
spouse, you're going to lose your house, you're going to lose your
yep,
job.
yep.
And the most comforting thing that you can hear is that somebody that loves you will hold you and go, "We
Yeah.
got this." And it
Yeah, we
doesn't
got it.
matter. And it doesn't matter what happens, they can't break
Right.
us, right?
Yes. That is an
That
important thing.
because if you have that, and I know as a man, if you have that,
Yeah.
then you know you have the footing you need to
Right.
stand up for whatever it is, right?
Right.
and
Right.
and so but you and that's why the love of your spouse is so important.
It's
That's
so
why,
important.
yeah. And I don't, yeah, even with all of this too, because we were talking about how mothers can be toxic.
Yeah.
Also, women are the healing force and the most
Yes.
important thing on this
A
planet,
hundred
because
percent.
all life comes from women.
Right.
and
So they can
and
be two at the same time, right?
exactly. And
They
as a
can either be
father,
that or that. Yeah.
and as a father, you have a sacred duty to
Hmm.
teach your daughters how men should treat them. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
that respect, the level and how you handle it, right? Also how you treat their mom. And so
Yes.
if their mom is attacking you, you have to be you how you respond is important.
Yes.
Not yelling
Yes.
back, not
Yes.
and I feel like the best advice that I had gotten was there was, I mean, at the very beginning it was like you were so triggered all the time, is there were attacks that were coming in, and my wife had said, okay, you need to rethink this situation in your head, because I would want to respond and I feel like I had to respond.
Right. Right.
She said, when you're going into the store and there's somebody with a mental illness who's coming up to you and they're yelling at you, do you stop and try to reason with them, or do you just keep walking into the store? this is what's
I
happening in
walk.
your
Yeah.
case and you need to stop. And when I
Yeah.
realized that, when I
Yeah.
was able to step back and see what was happening, and then you can also be forgiving too, because you have to
Yeah.
remember, like, it's not going to help if you only go out and badmouth and talk badly about
Yeah.
your ex. What
Yeah.
does that say about you too? Like, how long were you with them? You chose them. Like,
Well, and I
yes,
think that,
they can have bad qualities, they can
yeah.
have good qualities,
Yeah.
but especially in front of your children,
Well,
how
and
you
I
present.
don't think people understand that part of it. And I want to. There's one point I want to make on something you said, and then I'll address this. So the other thing, it's our responsibility as women too to show our daughters how to treat their partners, how to treat their husband, and the way that that's done is really really important. How to When you have a son and the way you treat your son, he's going to see that, and that is what he's going to mirror as the relationship that he has. So it is the responsibility of both parents to show kids how to act in these relationships. And if
And you
you're just acting like a fool all the time, of course that's going to happen.
and your children are going to model their relationships and
Yep,
find partners based on what you show them.
100%.
So if a child goes, "Oh, I'm the center of the universe," then when they have a child, the
Yeah, yeah,
child is the center of the
yeah,
universe, not
yeah,
their partner.
yeah,
And also the way you treat and interact with your partners. And that's why it's so important as well. And one thing that I'm grateful, and I'm sure you know now, I didn't understand until I'm with my wife now, that sacred covenant of it is your spouse and then it is
yeah, yeah,
everything else. Because
yeah,
if
yeah,
you are good with with your kids, one thing you have
yeah,
to remember is you don't
yeah.
want your kids to live with you your whole life, their whole life. you
Exactly.
you want them to be contributing
Yes,
members of
it's
society. You
okay.
want
It's
them out
okay.
pursuing their
Yes,
dreams. You
yes,
want them to be independent. You
yes,
don't want like to raise people who are too afraid to leave the nest. And the
yes,
person that you chose to spend your life with until you die is your
yeah,
spouse. That's who you
yes,
chose.
yes,
The
yes,
rest of it, you don't care. You need to, like,
yeah.
it's not that you don't care, like, you love your
You care about
children,
your
but your
kids,
job is
but
to
it's like go out in the world.
go.
And
Yes.
if here's a thing, what I want people to think about is if you want your child to stay close to you, like of course you love your kids, you want to see them, all those things. But if you want your child to stay close to you, like until they're adults, like I don't expect. Well, we're in California, so it's a different story. The price of housing is crazy, so it's a little
Yeah.
bit different. But if my 30-year-old was like calling me every day in the morning and at night and doing all these things and giving me all this information, I would have to look at myself and say, am I creating this process of codependency? And am I a narcissist as well? Like that, why would I want my child to be like that? That's not what healthy parenting looks like. Like, of
Yeah.
course, your
Right.
kids are always going to need you. I'm always going to need my dad. My dad is the center of being able to know like a North Star, and even more so, my husband now, too. Like, he is my North Star. But you're going to ask your parents for advice.
Yes.
They've been through it before.
Yes,
Like,
and you're gonna
so
want but
yeah,
you don't want to be like, again,
I don't want to live
you
with my
don't want
dad.
to be living with your
Yeah.
parents all the time. You don't want them to be, you don't want, like, if you
Yeah.
want independency, you want advocacy for yourself. That's the kind of kids you want to raise.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so for the parents who are beating themselves up and starting, one of
Yeah.
the things that I started to try to realize throughout this as well, right, is that, okay, so I have to trust the love that I've planted in my children.
Yes.
I
Hmm.
have to trust that they are, one, are they going to be good people? Are they going to
Hmm.
rate? And I can only do what I can do.
Right.
And I also have to know too that if the court is intercepting, if the court is stopping, this is also something that is a natural thing anyway, not that someone is interfering, but that you let your children grow up
Yeah.
to be
Yes.
who they're going to be. And
Yes.
you can be, I had to stop thinking of myself as a lifeboat there to save them
Yes.
and start thinking
Yes.
of myself as a lighthouse that I
Hmm.
could model
Guiding them.
exactly of who to
Hmm.
be, and they will find me. And
Right.
then that they will know that I love them. They will know who they are, and they will know
Right.
where to come back to,
You
right?
know, and
So
how old are your kids?
I have a 14, a 10,
Okay.
and an 8-year-old.
Okay. Okay. So So you've been in it for a little bit in regards to this. And
So
I
it's been
think
five
that,
years. Yeah.
yeah,
And if
that's
you,
crazy.
so
That's
5 years,
crazy.
I've been representing myself for four of the five.
Oh my
And
God, you
again,
spent $200,000 in a year. Holy
in
cow.
1 year, and then from then it's not like our filing stopped. So it's
Yeah.
weird. Like usually when you look at people's case files, they're like this big, right? And they'll come in and they'll be, I read your whole case file.
Like,
Mine is
yeah.
just hundreds of
Of file boxes, right?
oh, it's not. I mean, some of my filings are like they'll be 100 pages,
Yeah.
just because there's that much evidence. Because I'll be like,
Yeah.
I want this on the permanent record.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. Here's exactly what happened, and you put it in.
Yeah.
So, but the
Yeah.
amount of times that I've appeared before a judge, the amount of times things that
Yeah.
I've filed, the courts that I've filed in now, I would have
Yeah.
never guessed in a million years. If you had gone back 5 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
if you had gone back to the high school me and been
Yeah.
like, you will have filed in every court in the land, I would have been
Yeah.
like, you're ridiculous.
Yeah, right. So, like, you're filing writs, you're in front of federal court in the Ninth Circuit in regards to civil, like a civil rights case, in
Yes.
regards to these complaints, which then, if it doesn't go your way, which, fingers crossed, and I'm knocking on wood that it does in the Ninth Circuit, so that it just gets pushed down and you don't have to go to Supreme Court. I don't think, though, there's ever been a case that has to do with child custody that's been in front of the Supreme Court. And it's quite possible they could say, no, I don't want to hear
No,
it.
I
Right.
think there has, but they try really hard to not let it. And
Right.
one of the, there's so many elements of this too. And really,
Yes.
I mean, if you start, there are different ways of thinking about this. And I think that one of the things that you're going to hear too is in order for you not there are a lot of people who are advocates. There are a lot of people who are
Hmm.
claiming that they know what to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then there'll be people who say, don't do these certain things.
Hmm. Hmm.
You you need to go and file the complaints. If something is wrong,
Hmm.
no one can do anything until you let them know.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so there's filing in your superior court, there's filing in the appellant court.
Hmm.
That's the court structured
Yeah.
process. But then there are oversight agencies and oversight organizations for each of
Hmm.
them. And a lot of them, you'll put in a complaint and it's like putting in a suggestion at the suggestion box.
Right. Right.
But you need a record of it. Because
Yes.
if it ever becomes a civil rights case,
You
or
pull
if it
all
ever
those
be, if you want
records.
to go to the
Hmm.
federal level, you're talking about, because so federal is for institutions, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what you have to be able to do is show that I've exhausted all of the reasonable
Hmm.
steps that a person would go through and
Hmm.
gave them the opportunity to correct. Because you can't just
Yes.
jump to a federal, or
No.
maybe you can, and maybe there are people who are successful at it. And again, like
Right.
if I don't know if there's a for sure way to do this either. I
Well,
know that
and
there's
that's
a
the thing. Like,
yeah,
I know what works. I know what I've seen work. I mean, that's the thing. I think that number one, documentation is a big thing. Documentation is king because you can always pull back to that stuff. It's just like you can't
but
return anything without a receipt,
but
right?
documentation can also be blocked, and it
Right.
can be blocked
Yeah.
in I mean in nefarious ways. And
Right.
so
Right.
there's really the court and the rules. And again, this is my understanding. This is not legal
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
This may be the most bitter that I'll be. Is
Yeah.
the courts aren't interested in the truth. And I
Yeah.
used to think that they would be. I would go
Yeah.
forward with every filing and I'd be like, if I can just prove to them, if I could
Yeah.
just show them, they'll do the right thing. But they're
But
not
they don't
interested in the
care.
truth. They
No, they
don't.
don't. They don't care. And I say that not because it's you or me or whomever. They just don't care.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that is put in front of them that's going on.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, right? So if you look at, a county like where I live or where you live, there are probably about 10 or 11, maybe I think there's about 12 family court judges,
Wow.
right? So you have all those family court judges that are hearing from 20 people a day.
Yeah.
So then that's like 100 cases that they're getting a day that come in before them. And so, okay, now if there's 100 cases that's going before them, there's no way even the best of judges are going to remember everything about your case unless it's like crazy psycho. Like that's the thing. Like where then you start to, because your filings are what the judge is going to start to look at, and your lawyers are going to say and remind you of these filings and say, oh, okay, this happened, and then that's what the judge has as they prep the day before,
Yeah.
right? And so these things, like, please don't take it personally until it starts to feel personal. I can tell it's like actually personal, where they are
Yeah.
like literally being biased. They are being,
And it can be,
all of
and
the
even when
things.
it's happening personally,
Right.
what you have to do is get a tougher skin and be
Yes.
desensitized to it. You have to understand
Yes.
that, most of the lawyers that you meet who are and politicians or anyone successful, they're really tough, hard people usually.
Mm-hmm.
And because of it's because they understand attacks, because they understand how other people are thinking. And if you can really start to take yourself out of it and the personal
Yes.
attack, it's much
Yes.
easier because then if they get you in a position where you're emotional, you're going to make mistakes because
Yeah.
you're going to be
Every
in
time.
fight or flight and you're going to be in
Yep.
running in panic mode. But if you're able to look at it as a chess move, right? If
Mm-hmm.
they take something, then you go, okay, here are my additional options.
Right.
But if you're a pro per and you're just starting, you're like, I have no idea what those options
Right.
are.
And bringing up pro per
Yeah.
is really hard, especially as the parent, where there is all the false allegations that are happening and all of those things. And, so I don't know if people who listen know this, but usually I have a long list of questions that I send people before so they could prep. Because of all the things that is happening right now for Nick, I didn't want to put us on a path of having to ask all those questions because he's going to be in court tomorrow. Like, and that is a hard thing. So I want to, as one of the final questions, I want to ask this. What do you hope
We
that
can
your
do as many
kids,
questions as you want.
okay,
I'm an open book.
don't worry.
And like I said, I'm here to be the guide that I wish I would have had. And so I
Right.
can't,
Well, we're going to have
everything
you
that I
back on. Don't
say,
worry.
what was that? Oh,
We're going to have
perfect.
you back
Yes.
on. Don't worry.
And my goal too is to hopefully over this summer I'll start making just videos that is going to help
Yeah,
teach people
that
what
would be
I
huge.
here is how to here's
Hmm.
how to do this thing according to
Hmm.
my understanding, and I'm not
Right.
right, like
No
don't.
legal advice.
Yes,
This is my
this
experience.
is my
What I've done,
experience. And what
what's
I was
happened.
laughing with my wife yesterday. I said, I guess what I'm trying to do is create the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but for court. And they're like, with the words "Don't panic" in big bright
Yeah, don't
letters in
panic.
front.
And just so y'all know, the answer is not 42. The
Well,
answer
but
is not 42.
exactly. Well, and
So,
42 had a different context and meaning because 42 also, I forget
yep.
what it was, is there's some kind of equation or there's something that
Hmm.
happens where it also means everything and what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what you
Yep.
focus on and what you manifest, right?
Right. Well, and I
Um,
think the important thing is, if we did a podcast with the experience, the experiences that I have, the experiences that you have, it would probably be like a 12-hour podcast in regards to this.
which
So
I'm down to do.
we're gonna have to break it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think this will help for you going into tomorrow, right? So what do you hope that your three kids know someday when they're old enough to understand this fight that you've been in?
There are a couple things. I'm going to try not to cry because
It's okay if you
when
do.
when I finally made my federal timeline, and
Hmm. Hmm.
when I put everything together and I
Hmm.
started to send that out,
Hmm.
there
Hmm.
was a part of me that knew that I could be really hurt and I could be really attacked. But I
Hmm.
knew that I just needed to get it out there because the
Hmm.
truth needed to get out there.
Hmm.
And at the end, I signed off on of what I had wanted. If this was being marked down for the world for forever, right?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
couple things that I wish that I would wish for everyone.
Hmm.
One, love your children more than you hate your ex.
Hmm. Hmm.
But more and so that is just the guiding principle, right?
Right.
And the things that I wish that I would tell every parent, right, besides my kids, even 5 minutes with you is still going to be enough
Mm-hmm.
because I dedicated everything that I've been doing to all the parents who felt like they
Mm-hmm.
just couldn't get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you
Mm-hmm.
know, you are enough. And for
Mm-hmm.
all the kids who are from broken families, you are not broken and you are
Mm-mm.
not alone.
Right.
And you are loved. So, what
Yeah.
do I wish my children, what do I hope that they see?
Mm-hmm.
I hope that for my son, who I don't get to see, I
Mm-hmm.
just hope, I hope that our trauma, the things that have happened, can be turned into medicine that help others avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that is the case,
Mm-hmm.
then the pain will have carried meaning and we will have turned it into medicine.
Yep.
For my kids, I hope that they always stand up for the voiceless and that they don't back down
Mm-hmm.
from their truth.
Mm-hmm.
That you stand up even when you're scared.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be brave. You need to
Mm-hmm.
be strong. And that you always give a voice to the voiceless.
Mm-hmm.
That no one can take your truth but you.
Mm-hmm.
And you are more powerful than you could ever imagine. And
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately too, know that you are worth fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
Know that I have part of this was so that I could make sure that there was a documented record
Mm-hmm.
that they knew that I fought for them in
Mm-hmm.
every way possible, on every
Mm-hmm.
level possible,
Mm-hmm.
and that when I started to realize that the this was bigger than my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I started to realize too that there was a moment, and this is this is overly dramatized, right? But it was like I can see my kids on a sinking ship or on a
Mm-hmm.
sinking boat, and there's a gun to me saying, "You cannot. No one will let you go save them."
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's over dramatized.
I turned around and I realized there were 10 other boats or 100 other
Mm-hmm.
boats that were sinking with other children.
And
And I
other
went
parents at gunpoint.
with other parents at
Yeah.
gunpoint. And
Yeah.
I went, I can't save mine, or you may be blocking that, but I'm going to make sure I save theirs.
Right.
And so what I started doing was trying to document this and to make sure
Mm-hmm.
because I realized that I'm not fighting for my kids, I'm fighting for my grandkids. I'm fighting for
Yes.
my great grandkids. And what we're
Yes.
doing by putting this in all of this is that we're going to be able to, as more people know about this, they can't ignore it. And my case as well, what's before the Ninth Circuit is just up to August 22nd of last year.
Yeah.
And so much has happened
Right.
since then
Yeah.
to add
Yeah.
on to it that there's a whole other case. And
Yeah.
so yeah. So I mean, what do I wish that they know? I feel like all of that started to change. My perspective started to change when I realized how my kids saw themselves, how they
Right.
saw me. I started asking them what their favorite movies were and their
Mm-hmm.
favorite
Mm-hmm.
stories. And when you do
Mm-hmm.
that, you see, and I say, what character do you relate to in that story? And you can see how they navigate this world and how they see the
Yep.
world. And then you can see how they see you, right?
Yeah.
You can, and so when you realize that, then you start to go, okay, no, my kids are going to be
Yeah.
okay, you
Well,
know?
and it is scientifically proven that you can have one crazy parent, one parent who's a narcissist, as long as there's one healthy parent in that whole situation. Usually, you get off without too many traumas. You still have some traumas, but without too many traumas, and you have that healing.
And your
Um,
kids all also know too, when they're stuck in that trauma,
yeah,
there's another parent out there that can be
yeah.
there.
There's another
Right?
side.
There's another step, there's
Yep.
hope. And if you can create even, oh man, if every parent could do this too,
Yeah.
if it's a high conflict divorce,
Yeah.
you be the one spot where they can
Yeah.
relax.
Exactly. 100%.
Just
You
relax.
spot on. That's spot on. And it's definitely something that we really focus on here in our family. Nick, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know there's like a bazillion things more. I know
Yeah, of
there
course.
is because there's a bazillion things more I want to ask. So we are going to have you back on,
Yeah, anytime.
in a couple months, and then we'll get an update of
And
all the things that are going on. We'll find out what happened tomorrow, all of the things. Um, And it's quite possible we could even do a live, because I think that a lot of people will appreciate like even being able to ask questions right there,
Yeah,
because
perfect.
you have the flip side, right? You have the woman's perspective, you have the male perspective, you have, I was the one who was abused, and very much on that side, I support my husband in his with his kids. And so there's all these things that go on. And I want to leave with this. Like, I think there's an unspoken, and you mentioned it a couple times, but there's an unspoken like thing that I think we need to bring to attention. And I think that's your wife and the support that she gives on this other side. There is,
The
with me.
true hero of
Right.
the story.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
my
Right.
gosh.
My husband on my side, where it's like they're dealing and they see the things that are happening. It's any person whose spouse is going through these high conflict divorces, and what they do to center their partners and center their, their husband or their wife that's going through this. That I know is a lot, and we could start a whole other podcast on that. But I want you to know that you were seen and heard too, even if you feel like you're not, like you're seen and heard. So thank you so much for being here today. I
Of
really, really
course.
appreciate you.
And
And we will be
anytime,
on
even a
again.
12-hour podcast. I'm serious. Like
Okay,
any,
we're
and
gonna do
if
it.
you any questions that you're like, how do we? I just have to. We have
Yeah.
to have a legal disclaimer
A
that's like, this is
disclaimer.
not legal
Yeah.
advice, and I'll be
No.
like, let's walk you through how you do
Yeah,
it. How do you
exactly.
go? Yeah,
We'll have to workshop it or something. But thank you. I appreciate you being on.
of course. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this super important conversation. A special thank you to the spouses, partners, friends, and loved ones who help carry people through difficult seasons and remind them they're not alone. And thank you, Nicholas, for sharing your story. Healing from a narcissistic mother is real, possible, and you never have to do it with shame. I'm your host, Nolani Pearl Hernandez, and until next time, take gentle care of yourself.
Your skin is a part of your nervous system, and taking care of it is essential to overall balance. Our products are specifically formulated to nourish your skin and bring it closer to homeostasis with every use. Start feeling better in your body today with the Happy Cannabis.